70s. He's gone on to serve as a color football analyst for ESPN regional games and as the color football analyst for LSU games on Tiger Vision. In addition, he served as the Secretary-Treasurer for the NFL Players Association for well over a decade, and he writes on a regular basis for SportsNola.com. LSU is now #1 in the nation in the Associated Press Bowl, and they will host Kentucky in that Saturday morning special this coming Saturday at Tiger Stadium. Please give a warm quarterback club welcome to Rene Nadeau. Rene?
Thank you, Kenny. It's great to be here. It's always great to be here with two good friends I consider good friends, John and Jay, and of course Kenny. And so I look forward to this, really do. I had a chance to do an LSU game a couple of weeks ago, and one of my ESPN assignments was Louisiana Tech, Houston, 2 weeks ago, and that was quite a game. Usually, ESPN will send me to West Virginia at least twice a year, so I've been up there 10, 12 times the last few years. And I told anyone who would listen before this game that Geno Smith was going to be the best quarterback that LSU would face this whole year. Dana Holgorsen taking over that job has certainly changed that young man, and that's the kind of kid that's going to play on Sunday. He's got a 146 quarterback rating, completing almost 66% of his passes. Geno Smith's about a 6'3", 6'4", 215-pound quarterback, and they got a wide open offense. And you know, I don't think people asked me since that game, what's wrong with LSU's defense? There's nothing wrong with LSU's defense. They faced a team that was capable, prepared to play LSU. LSU took the challenge, and you know, it's good teams find ways to win, and that's exactly what LSU did. You know, he kind of sliced up their defensive backfield, but he's got good receivers. Two of the receivers he played in high school with, McCartney and Bailey, Stedman Bailey. So that's a good offense. And you know, the offensive line, for what it's worth, they from Steeltown. 4 of the 5 offensive linemen for the Mountaineers come out of Pittsburgh, Ohio area, so that big, tough, you know, offensive lineman, the way they grow them up there. And I'll tell you, you talk to the LSU players, they'll tell you this is the most physical game, even above Mississippi State, that they've played this year. This was a tough, physical game for LSU. I wrote an article about a week or two ago on SportsNola, kind of identifying some of the best defenses that LSU's ever had. And I realized that the game has evolved with passing, so it's changed. The all-time stingiest defense in LSU history was in 1930. They gave up under 3 points a game. More modern times, this defense LSU has this year kind of reminds me a lot of the 2003 defense that had Spears, Marquise Hill, LaRon Landry, Chad Lavallee, and Corey Webster. And another team that this defense reminds me of is the 1969 defense that you may recall went 9-1, had Tommy Casanova, Craig Burns, John Sage, Ronnie Estee, George Bevan, and Mike Anderson, the linebackers. But you may recall 9-1 and didn't go to a bowl because Notre Dame took the bowl bid to the Cotton Bowl and bumped LSU. That's 2 defenses in modern history that I think this defense reminds you of. Defensive secondary right now, that defense is surrendering just over 14 points a game, allowing 53 yards on the ground. They had 34 tackles for losses. Time of possession, the offense is keeping the ball a little over 33 minutes a game. And the thing is jumps out at you. They had 4 turnovers against West Virginia. They're a +8 in the turnover ratio right now, 6 interceptions and 5 forced fumbles. I thought this might be a good opportunity to kind of give you a little background on how good this defense is. Excuse me. I talked to Sam Montgomery, number 99, in the offseason, and you know, some of the questions I asked these guys, you know, and I asked him, I said, how fast are you, Sam? He said, I ran a 4.4 140, and I'll do it for you right now. Well, you know, I said, I don't think coaches will like that, so I have to take your word for it. You're talking about a defensive end that had a chance to go to North Carolina and play basketball and football. That's how good he is. That's why I said he reminds me of Marcus Spears. Marcus Spears had a scholarship offer on the table to go to Duke for basketball. Turned it down. Kiki Mingo is just about as fast. So you got 2 guys that run in a 4.5 range or better. Kendrick Adams, guy who chased down one of the West Virginia running backs the other night, he was a tight end, a part-time tight end at Copiah Lincoln Junior College before he came to LSU. He signed with Auburn before he went to junior college. And LeVar Edwards is a kid out of Desire Street School that doesn't get the credit because he's surrounded by talent. Michael Brockers is going to be the next best All-American defensive tackle at LSU. What an athlete he is. Benny Logan has been influenced, his style, by Drake Nevitz, and he reminds me a lot of Chad Leveille. Just the way he's very cerebral and technically sound. Anthony Johnson, everybody in New Orleans knows him, 67.5 sacks in high school. Once he gets his feet underneath him and gets some reps, he's going to be extra special. And Josh Downs, you know, he's a situational defensive lineman. He's got the best first step, best explosive step among that starting four. You got three senior linebackers, Stephon Francois, Cornell Hatcher, and Ryan Baker, great leadership there. But you got some guys standing behind them from New Orleans, Layman Barrow, from John Eric, Kevin Minter, DJ Walter, Luke Mincy, and you got some guys coming in this recruiting class that have already committed that are going to be very special linebackers. LSU has the best cornerback tandem since Corey Webster and Travis Daniels, and I think this is probably a better tandem with Tyrann Mathieu and Mo Claiborne. I don't think LSU fans want to hear this, but I would be very surprised if Mo Claiborne comes back next year. Tyrann Mathieu, Defensive Player of the Year in the country, and Mo Claiborne got the same award a couple of weeks ago as a defensive back, Jim Thorpe Award. You know, something that Matthew told me before the season, and talk about hit your mark. I said, give me a goal you have. You know, how many tackles, how many interceptions? And I didn't think he'd tell me, and he said, I'll tell you right now, 90 tackles, I wrote it down, 10 tackles for losses and 7 sacks. That's what he told me. I said, I'm going to write it down in ink now. I'm not going to erase it. He said, go ahead. He's got 30 tackles, 1/3 of the way through the season, 30 tackles, and he's got 3 tackles for loss. Guy, I mean, he hits his mark. I mean, he's got a career, LSU career, 7 forced fumbles, all-time high at LSU. He reminds me of Mike Williams. If you all may recall, Mike Williams was the #1 draft choice of the San Diego Chargers, 22nd player overall. Playmaker, I know he played a long time ago. I was there with Mike, and people say, you know, he was a long time ago. Mike Williams was a great talent, and Tyrann Mathieu was very much like him. Brandon Taylor is the guy who kind of, he's that safety back there, and he's the leadership, he's that senior leadership that kind of rattles that secondary together. Eric Reed, it reminds me so much of LaRon Landry in talent and the way he tackles. Craig Lawson, you know, there's a few guys that are hurt. Craig Lawson, Alex Hurst, T-Bob, they all get in check. Not sure what's going to happen beyond this, if they're going to be available next week or the week after, because that was, again, a very physical game. And but it looks like Chris Falk will be back. You know, that offensive line, you got 2 seniors that are going to be leaving, T-Bob and Blackwell. You got Alex Hurst, who's only a junior. Falk is a sophomore. Lonergan, who's has done a great job of Rumble product. He's one of the best centers in the SEC, if not in the whole South. And they got guys behind him. Lael Collins is a freshman this year. He's getting reps, 6'5", 320, and he can play anywhere on the offensive line. He is a very, very, very special player. And Josh Dworsik, he's going to ask for a 6th season injury. If he comes back, what an incredibly intelligent guy he is. And to bring him back would be a very big plus for that offensive line. Ruben Randall's another guy. He may not be back next year. He's having a breakout year, and he's in line with those great wide receivers as it looks right now. You know how good he was, and you may know this, I know Kenny does. When he was in high school, he was such a good talent, such a talented athlete. He played baseball as a shortstop, and he had overtures from the Phillies, the Angels, and the Rockies, who wanted to draft him in Major League Baseball, and he pretty much told them, I want to play football, but he's that good. Odell Beckham. Wow, Odell Beckham reminds me so much of 2 guys, and I'll tell you why. Wendell Davis and Michael Clayton. Michael Clayton, because he blocks so well and has great hands, and Odell Beckham loves to block. And Wendell Davis, who was with us at the game a couple of weeks ago, is so meticulous on his routes and you know, the way he approaches the game. And both these guys, Michael Clayton and Wendell Davis, are both pretty low-key kind of guys, if you will. And Odell Beckham is a lot like that. His coach told me when he was in high school, when he played basketball, he wanted to guard the best point producer on the opponent's team. He's more of a lockdown kind of guy. You know, he's no frills, and he don't want the limelight. He just wants whatever helps the team win. He's worked on his blocking. and done a great job. Jarvis Landry, this is interesting. I asked guys different questions for different reasons. I asked Jarvis Landry, why do you wear number 80? And he said, because Terrence Tolliver and Dwayne Bowe wore it before me, and his jersey number 80 means something. Excuse me. And he said, I want to be in the same line of receivers as those two guys. That's taken on a lot saying that. Russell Shepard being back has really opened things up and helped a lot of that offense. I'll tell you a quick kind of interesting story. I asked Jared Fobbs, he's number 5, wide receiver. He hasn't got a lot of playing time so far this year, but he wears number 5, and I said, why do you wear number 5? And he said, because when I was a little kid, I used to be a Superman fan, and that's the closest I can come to an S on my chest. That's kind of interesting. You know, Jarrett Lee is a guy that a lot of fans were waiting for him to fail, and if you ever have a chance to sit and listen to this young man, what a good guy he is. And he reminds me so much of Matt Flynn. And I'm not saying that because Matt Flynn won the BCS title as a quarterback for LSU, but Jarrett Lee has done all the things he had to do, and he could have left just like Matt Flynn. He doesn't have a powerful arm, although Jarrett Lee can make some throws that Matt Flynn could not make when he was at LSU. And he's a very studious guy. He's a guy that all the team looks up to. He's overcome adversity, and very much like Matt Flynn, he's very mentally tough. You know, Jarrett Lee, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 64% of his passes complete. He hits over 78% of his passes against Mississippi State. Jordan Jefferson, I would be surprised if he's not back on his team in a couple of weeks. I don't know anything on the inside. I'm just speculation of what I've seen and a little bit there. Spencer Ware and Michael Ford, both 300 yards or better. Michael Ford, 6 touchdowns, and they have guys behind him, Alfred Blue from Hornville, and Terrence McGee. If he gets on the field, he's not going to leave. He's very, very much like a Kevin Falk out of Franklin High School as a quarterback. James Stampley, fullback, has already busted 25 helmets and I don't know how many face masks. Has never carried the ball. They got to give him, I wouldn't put him in the same category as Kevin Stells, but he's right up there, boy. I tell you what, he don't care if he ever sees the ball. He loves to put his nose in a linebacker's chest, and he's a big, big reason for that offensive running success. You know, LSU is they'll be playing Kentucky this week, and they'll play Florida the week after that. And the thing is, I get the impression, again, very much like the championship teams, that they're focusing on what's the task at hand. Not worried about West Virginia's over with, not worried about Florida, Alabama coming. They're worried about what's coming next. And you have to credit Les Miles for that. Les Miles, if you talk to his players and his coaches, in a torrential storm and everything, he is just a calming force. He doesn't lose his cool, and he makes decisions, and he talks about it with his coaching staff. And he's a very calming effect with that whole team. And Les, I know he says some strange things and he's funny, but he knows he's got a handle on things and he knows exactly what he's doing. Will LSU wind up in the BCS championship? I don't know, but things would have to fall their way as they have in the past. But this is the most talented defense I have seen, I can ever remember, with the speed and too deep at every position. They are extremely, and you win with defense. Having said that, any questions?
Raise your hand if you do.
Yes, sir.
When we run out of time getting slave, all the time, do you find that Miles is a little too tight to control when he wants to call the play? They say it's going back and forth with his offensive coordinator. What do you think about that?
You know, not having a headset on for that, I think there has been some discussion before the play was finalized. I don't think that's happened with the situation you have now with Stud Drawer and Craig Thorpe. They're pretty much taken over that, and whatever input Les, although he can't overrule, I think they're pretty much, they've been handling the play calling between the two of those guys. Anything else? Yes, sir. I'm sorry? You know, to get a defensive player to get some Heisman votes is pretty tough. But if you're playing on a good team, which he is, and making the kind of plays he's making, and all the right, you know, ABCs and ESPNs and CBSs are talking about him, how he's the guy, and he's around the ball. If Lady Luck continues to shine on him and he continues to make plays, yeah, I was thinking maybe as a Jim Thorpe kind of guy. Heisman is kind of a reach. He's only a sophomore, and being a defensive back, you have to really, really be special. He would have to kind of take things over as a return specialist to kind of get into that Heisman jump, I think. You know, defensive plays are one thing, but he'd have to really kind of make some plays on offense or, you know, with his handling, with the ball in possession, touchdowns, for him to kind of get some Heisman votes. Anything else? My pleasure. Thank you very, very much.